I hope you're having a wonderful day today. I'm having a really good day. I'm not teaching. I'm just working on my social media for my curriculum today. So it's a good day, just relaxing, hanging out with the family and everything else today. All right. So today we're going to do ESL lessons versus or with ESL curriculum. So when you're thinking about teaching your own private students, there's a lot of free ESL lessons out there, a lot of them. So let's say you wanted to teach your students maybe a 5-part series on animals or dinosaurs or something like that. You can find a lot of that on the internet. And I think that's important to switch it up, versus you have an ESL curriculum. So that's what I do. I create an ESL curriculum to teach students online. Most of my students are not 5 years old. Well, most of my students are 7 years old. I would say to 14 years old. I do have a few that are younger, but that's not a majority of my students. So when you're looking at curriculums, you really want to make sure curriculum is different than just a regular lesson, right? So curriculum that builds their foundation for English. So like, I'll give you an example. You want to make sure it has sight words in it. You want to make sure you have word families. You want to make sure you have grammar. And for me, what's important is having very good reading section. So each unit has a very good reading section, because I really think reading is one of the keys for my students' success when I'm teaching them. So, there's a lot of different points that you need to have. There are also some interesting things too. Or you want to bring in, like the ESL lessons, bring in different ESL lessons to kind of mix it up for the students, make it a little fun too, right? You want some you want some games in there to make it fun. For students. So you have to decide which combination is good for your students. So when you sit down and think about, lessons and curriculum, what's best for your students, right? Are you just teaching, maybe you're teaching them in packages. Maybe you're teaching a student maybe 30 classes, and they want to learn about a certain thing, so you can create the lessons for that, right? For me, I like ESL curriculums because I can over time, 100 lessons or 40 lessons or whatever, I can see the improvement in the students. They're starting to build a solid foundation for English. So to me, that's the reason why I created my curriculum, because that's very important. It was very, very difficult, before, to find a solid curriculum to teach my students online. Like at the time, I think this was almost 3 years ago, I couldn't really find that much. It was just all lessons. No one was bringing that together. And some of them, they did bring it together, but it's very expensive for teachers. So, if you're spending $9 per student per month, that's really unrealistic for ESL teachers. I just think, a lot of these monthly fees, one-time fees, I think that's okay. But having monthly fees for a long time, it's not really doable for a lot of teachers. If you have 10 students, maybe it is, 10 or 20 students, it might be, but pay that every month, it just adds up for teachers, because that's not the only expense you have. Like some people have book widgets, and you got to pay a yearly fee for that, and that's for creating games, right? Or there might be some other things that a teacher needs to teach their own private students, and if you add all that stuff up, it becomes very, very expensive. So I used to have my curriculum on different servers, with different companies, they teach you how to create the products, but it was just too expensive. And if I was going to do that now, it's going to cost me $1,000 a month. And then I have to pass that cost on to the teacher, and that's not what I want to do. So I created my own platform for my curriculum that there's no monthly fees or anything except for the server fees, because, I just think it gets, all those fees you have to pay. It's just too much on teachers, I think. So, so for me, I like dealing with curriculums versus lessons. Other teachers might want to deal with lessons and not as much on the curriculum side. Maybe it's a little bit too strict for them. So, or maybe you want to create your own lessons for your students. So I think that's good too. But you have to remember, if you're going to have 10 students and you have to create lessons for them every week, if you're going to, most of my students I have 3 times a week, or even some of them I have 5 times a week. Are you going to have time to really effectively create those lessons every week for your students? It is a lot of work, I can tell you that. In the beginning, when I was doing it, and I had my, I'm teaching so many students and really trying to build up my curriculum. It's a lot of work. It's not, it's not easy. And now that I have so many lessons, I can really focus on the teaching, right? And trying to decide for the next class, maybe I want to add in, maybe I want to grab a different ESL lesson or even create a different ESL lesson that's not part of the curriculum. But it's a lot of work. That's one thing you really have to think about. And it's just not the curriculum or the lessons. There's a lot of different things you have to put in place to make sure your lessons are successful, the students are learning. Maybe the parent wants an update on how their kid is doing every so often. So there's a lot of factors involved. And you have feedback you got to give the parents, right? Do you have a feedback form? So it's more standardized, but you can tweak it for each of your students. There's just a lot of pieces involved. And for me, curriculum wise, I wanted to make sure that my students are learning and improving all the time. And that's important to me, but also throw a fun lesson in, right? If you find a fun lesson on the internet, maybe you want to do what do they call them? They call them there's a lot of different rooms you can create. I think they're escape rooms, for your student if they're a little bit older, or just something fun for your students. Talk to your students and find out what are some things they like, and maybe you can kind of find a common theme or a common thread. Maybe 80 of your students like to play soccer. So that gives you an opportunity to make theme lessons for your students, and just to make it fun, right? Or maybe you want to throw them all into one class. Make it more interactive. Instead of having one-on-one, throw them all into a class and just make it fun, right? And that kind of breaks it up for your students too. I think that's important, because what I do with my one-on-one students is if their level is very, very close, I will put them in a lesson together so they have that interaction. Because sometimes Maynard will go, "Oh no, princess, that's not the answer. This is the answer." So they're kind of, and then they both smile and laugh. So I think that's important too, to kind of mix it up a little bit for your students. All right, I hope this is helpful. This is ESL Lessons versus ESL Curriculum, and maybe mixing it up. And then instead of having just, the normal lesson, you can put your students together and make it more fun and interesting for your students. All right. I hope this was helpful. All right, I got to go now. Bye.